Govinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. So first, just want to thank you. First, welcome those that may be joining us live here this evening, or perhaps those of this is recorded, maybe be played by some devotees who will listen to it later. I want to welcome everybody. This is a very special day. We just saw the puja, Abhishek ceremony celebrating Lord Nrsimha's appearance, which officially, technically was earlier this week, but also we're reminded about Lord Nrsimha's appearance today. And also is another very, very important day. Today is Mother's Day. So I want to take the opportunity to thank all of the mothers that may be listening in, and wish you a very, very happy day. And thanks for being here. You should be home just having your husbands and your children or your friends or your other family members taking full care of you, but instead you're here listening to my humble class. So very grateful for you to make some time for that. But it is a special day, and I do want to call that out and appreciate all the ladies, particularly those of you who are moms, for the role that you play, the important role that you play in society, and especially in a spiritual society. Also, I'll mention that I'm very grateful to have a chance to speak to many of my friends, fellow Vaishnavas from Naperville. I haven't been there in a while. Prabhuji, when you introduced me, you mentioned that I travel widely, just to make sure I don't get in trouble with the government, either in Maryland or in Illinois. I'm not traveling lately. I'm not doing that. I'm following all the guidelines, only wearing masks when I go outside, and not flying on any airplanes. So I'm being a very a good citizen, and doing my part to help address the guidelines we're all asked to follow, which I think is an important thing. But I'm very happy to be able to connect with everyone here virtually. I came back from India. I was in India much of the end of last year, December, January, February, much of that. And I came back in mid-March, and I'd hoped to come to Naperville sometime March, April, May, but it's going to be some time before that's going to happen. But I'm glad I can connect with you virtually. So when I was asked to give the talk, I was as I often do, ask, are there any suggestions that what I should talk about this evening? And there were two suggestions came, not one, but two. And the first one was, well, it's actually, this was mine, came in my own mind that, oh, this is Mother's Day. So one, I should speak about Mother's Day. Very wonderful topic to speak about. Lots of connections we can make with Krishna consciousness on Mother's Day. It's a beautiful topic. And the second one didn't quite seem to fit so well with the first one when I first heard it, but the one topic was Mother's Day. The second topic was fearlessness connected with Lord Nrsimha. So I was thinking, well, how do we connect these two? Because we know the story you've probably been hearing and reading a lot about Lord Nrsimha the last few days. The incarnation of Lord Krishna, who comes as a half man, half lion, very fierce incarnation. Perhaps I think we Gaudiya Vaishnavas would say the fiercest incarnation of the Lord. Of course, behind all of that is he's coming to protect Prahlad, but he comes to eliminate, exterminate, kill this horrible king, Hiranyakashipu, who was abusive to all of his citizens, in fact, all of the demigods and even his own son. So very, very fierce mood of Lord Nrsimha. And as we'll talk about in a few minutes, one of the ways devotees are deal with the strain and the fears of this world is by taking shelter to Lord Nrsimha. So there's this rasa, or this relationship, this mood, this ethos of Lord Nrsimha, and talk about mothers in the same talk. It's well, how do we do that? Doesn't seem to go together so well, especially because I was thinking today, as most of us or all of us, I hope, are, about my own mother. She passed away a few years ago, but she would have been 101 later this month. We're a few days away from her birthday anniversary, and she was a very gentle lady. So I was thinking, okay, mothers and Nrsimha, again, struggling. How do I put these two together? And then I thought, well, we hear a lot these days about tiger moms, right? You've all heard the expression tiger moms, who are in their love, they kind of, push their children, maybe sometimes a little too hard. And, you got to be successful. You got to work hard in school and all of that. So I thought, okay, well, tiger moms, but I've heard of tiger moms, but I never heard of lion moms. That was something I wasn't familiar with. Didn't come to my mind. So how do I put these two together? Then I remembered, actually, Srila Prabhupada, he taught us something that beautifully connects the concepts of fearlessness and motherhood, when he said that as devotees of Lord Krishna, we should be both qualities, both personas should manifest in ourselves, in our own hearts, in the way we live our lives, which he said we should have hearts as soft as a Bengali mother. He was born in Bengal, so perhaps most familiar with the soft-heartedness, love of his own mother and other Bengali mothers. So he said Bengali mother, no prejudice against German mothers or Mexican mothers or mothers from UP or anywhere else, but he particularly said Bengal, but I think we can broaden it for this context. To have the soft-heartedness of a mother, he said we devotees should have, and also the courage of an Englishman or an English soldier. So to put those two things together, that was his direct instruction to us. We should have the courage, and courage is similar to the idea of being fearless, the courage of an English soldier, and the soft-heartedness, the compassion of a mother. So interesting, putting these two topics together. So first, let's talk a little bit about a mother's love. In our Vaishnava teachings, we understand that the goal of life for all of us is to awaken our own personal love for God, love for Lord Krishna. And we understand that Krishna's love is actually there. His relationship with us is always there, eternally. And we're trying to reconnect, reawaken that. So Prabhupada explained to us that when trying to understand the nature of the relationship between the soul and God, or what's the nature of the love or the bhakti between the soul and God, he said that actually the closest thing we can understand in this world to what it means to actually experience love of God is to observe the love between a mother and a child. So this is the closest thing that we see in this world to pure love or selfless love. And we understand all the acharyas in our scriptures, they explain, when we regain our original pure spiritual consciousness, we awaken that selfless love for Krishna and can enter into the spiritual realm, which is, according to the great Vaishnava teachers, an ocean of various relationships with God, all based on selfless desire to serve God. And that's the nature of the whole loving exchange. The devotee is trying to please Krishna. Krishna is actually trying to please the devotees. Here in this world, we see a perverted reflection of that. Even when we have friends or loved ones, oftentimes there's some ulterior motive. We love a friend as long as they're popular, as long as they're nice to us. We love sometimes we see so much divorce in the world today. We have a loving relationship with our spouse, but something goes wrong. The relationship turns sour. And it's so much so that I was reading an article yesterday, it was even kind of making jokes about how people these days, they want to do unpleasant things, to your ex. It's kind of like a joke about how can you be mean to your ex-husband or your ex-wife? And I was just thinking, that's so sad. This is a relationship that people committed themselves to. Something went wrong. Sometimes those things happen. But to come out of that with a sense of wanting to harm or make look bad the other person, or it's a very, very sad thing. So love in this world, it's temporary, it's flickering, and sometimes it's affectionate, and sometimes those relationships break. Unlike the spiritual experience that we're advised to seek through our yoga process. So today, this is the day that we remember and honor our mothers. And we can think about that also in this context that I love my mother, appreciate what she's done, and all the mothers. And isn't it interesting that Krishna's love for us and the love we can reawaken for him, it's most perfectly represented, or closest thing is represented in this world, is the love for mother and the child. And as we look around us, we can see, well, what does that mean? Prabhupada gave a lot of very practical examples. And the reason he gave these examples, and the Bhagavatam is full of examples, and Gita is full of examples. All of us, when we teach Krishna consciousness, we also try to use examples to help us make the correlation, help us see things more clearly. So when we hear that the love, spiritual love, is most closely represented by the love of a mother and the child, we should look at what does that mean? What do we see in this world? And we see that the job of a mom, the love that she keeps for her child, it's quite phenomenal. It's a 24/7 job. You see, particularly women with young babies, those of you that are moms, you know what we're talking about. Those of you that are dads, you've also observed it. Not to minimize the love of the father, but probably particularly emphasizes the love of the mother. But we see what really a thankless type of service it is, especially the small baby. There's not a whole lot of reciprocation. Of course, in one sense, the mother's emotional bond with the baby is a very, very intense one. But in a practical sense, the baby doesn't do a whole lot for the mother. You know, the baby wakes up the mother all night long. The baby cries. The baby's not satisfied. There's a lot of kind of like, I have demands, you satisfy those. It's quite a one-way relationship, but that's the depth of the mother's love for her child. And if you go a few years later, the children, to a certain extent, they become easier to care for as they get a little bit older, but then they become teenagers and they become so much trouble all over again. So it's kind of like it's a cycle that sometimes doesn't seem to be a lot of rewards, but the mother's love is so deep, so pure, so selfless, not completely pure. This is still a material experience and not completely pure. But again, our teachers say it's the closest thing to pure love that's manifested in this world. So today we remember moms, and we also remember Lord Krishna. Remembering mothers should help us remember Lord Krishna, because this love we see between the mother and the child is an example, Prabhupada says, of what love's like in the spiritual realm. So a couple thoughts further about this connection between a mother's love and Krishna's love. We understand that God's love is similar to that of the mother. And Srila Prabhupada explains this a little more. He says that sometimes we see in this world that children go away. They break the relationship with the parents. They feel, okay, I'm all grown up now. I don't need mom and dad anymore. Of course, in most recent years, we hear, because of the economic situation, a lot of 27-year-olds moving back in with their parents. But, under normal circumstances, that doesn't happen. And sometimes the children, even at an earlier age, there may be some break in the relationship, they go away. But Prabhupada explained, I was just listening to a lecture this morning, and Prabhupada was talking about the love of the parents. And here he said the father, but father and mother as well. He said the son or the daughter may forget their loving relationship with the parent. They may forget the parent. They may try to leave the relationship with the parent, but the parent, the father or the mother, never forgets. And I was thinking also there's a parable given in the Bible and the Christian teachings the same way, that they use the term the prodigal son, who goes away from the father's kingdom, decides, oh, I want to be on my own. I can make it. I don't need you anymore. And he takes his part of his inheritance and he leaves. And eventually he squanders all of his money. He realizes that he's not happy. It explains particularly, he says, I'd be more happy as a slave in my father's house or servant in my father's house than I am supposedly here as a free man separately. So he goes back. And even though he rejected his father, the father immediately embraces him and immediately brings him back, welcomes him back like that. So in that tradition also, they have this understanding, as Prabhupada taught us and our previous acharyas teach us, that the love of Krishna for us is so great that even though we may disobey, we may become rebellious, perhaps we've done a lot of things we regret even in this lifetime, Krishna never forgets us, never forgets his relationship with us, and never gives up wanting us to come back and awaken our relationship and go back to the spiritual world. In fact, Prabhupada says, when we become practitioners, devotees, for every one step we take towards Krishna, he takes 10 steps towards us. That's a lot of steps. If you can just imagine, if you had a boss, and every time you did one good thing, he or she did 10 nice things for you, or you had a spouse, and every time you did one nice thing for them, they did 10 nice things for you. Boy, that's a pretty amazing relationship. That's pretty special. Usually people are measuring a little bit. What'd you do for me today, boss? But that's the nature of Krishna's love. It reminds me of another story. In fact, I heard Rukmini, I'll borrow a story my wife told on a class she gave the other day. connected to the whole COVID crisis. About in Italy, there was one elderly Italian man who had gone into the hospital and was fortunate enough to survive having to have the ventilator. It's reported in the media. And when he was released, he was given a bill, 2,000 euros or something like that. And the man, elderly man, began to cry. And they were thinking, well, it's okay. If you can't afford it, it's okay. Don't feel so pressured, you know? And the man said, no, I'm not crying because I can't pay for it. I'm crying because for a few days, a few hours of air, you want to bill me 2,000 euros, but my entire life I've been breathing air given freely by God, and I've never really stopped to appreciate how valuable it is or to thank him for this gift. And it's explained that actually he began to cry, and then the doctors or the different administrators, whoever was there at that time, also began to cry, with kind of a shared sense of we have so many gifts that are given to us. So on this day of Mother's Day, one important thing to remember about Krishna and our spiritual practice is that just like a mother, God, Lord Krishna, giving so many gifts to us. You know, every day we get up and the air is free and the sunshine is free. And we have these bodies, you know, if you just look at your hands, I don't even know how it moves. I mean, even scientists and medical people, they can explain certain processes, but if you go deep enough, it always boils down to that question. We're not really quite sure why that happens. You know, that this energy is connecting with this and this muscle and this ligament, but why does that happen? Why does that happen? If you go deep enough, it's always, well, that's a mystery. We're not quite sure. But we know ultimately the mystery is Krishna. He's given us this body. He's given us so many gifts, given us the earth, giving us the food. These days, people even more appreciative of the food that comes from the earth. Now that there's a sense of maybe we won't have anything, maybe the economy is in such a situation that things could get more and more scarce or more people, then we start thinking, how valuable are these gifts? So this is the nature of the gifts that Krishna is giving to us out of his infinite kindness, like a mother does. A second point on this mother side, and then I'll flip to the fearlessness aspect of our conversation, that we also on Mother's Day have an opportunity to remember that the eternal, most sweetest relationship of any child and any mother is that Krishna himself displays with his mothers in the spiritual world. We have the relationship of Lord Krishna and Mother Yashoda and Mother Devaki. Other incarnations, we have Lord Kapila and Devahuti. So many different relationships and are explained, and we hear about in the scripture. And it's so sweet. And again, we can see that, okay, this love is here in this world that is so satisfying. So, of course, I'll mention briefly, this is the age of Kali Yuga, the age of quarrel. Sometimes it does happen that some of us may not have had a particularly close relationship with our mother, and that's an unfortunate thing. But sometimes that too also gives us impetus to look for where the real shelter is. I was reading Srila Prabhupada Lilamrita. His mother also died very young. He was just 16 years old when his mother passed away. So sometimes those things do happen in this world, but either way, it can be impetus for us to seek out this true relationship with Krishna. So on Mother's Day, we think about mothers and the good things, but then we also can think about Krishna and his mother and how playful it was, and get some insight about who is this person that's giving me the free air and giving me the earth to walk on and giving me the ability to speak and to see and to hear, and who's behind all this? Is it just some kind of faceless thing out there, or some impersonal force? Or is it actually the source of everything, including the source of all beautiful relationships? And that's what our Vaishnava teachers explain to us, that Krishna is the source of everything and every relationship, including this beautiful relationship between children and their mothers. So much so that God enjoys taking the role as a child and as a baby and having a relationship with his devotees who choose to love him in that way. And in those pastimes, it's so amazing. Just one comes to mind that gives us some insight about the playful nature of Krishna. That those of you know the story, I'll tell real briefly. Krishna as a very young child. Once he was naughty, and his mother was trying to correct him, and finally she got a little exasperated, and she said, "All right, I need to discipline my child. How's he going to grow up and be a good young man that I want?" And of course, it's a whole philosophical discussion. God's unlimited, but he chooses to take on this role or to play in this eternal leela or pastime with his devotees that want to love him this way. So he's unlimitedly powerful, but he acts and plays this role of a small child. So Yashoda is thinking, oh, I have to take responsibility for my son. He's been naughty. I'm going to tie him up. I'm going to have to teach him a lesson. So she gathers all the rope in the house and goes to tie him up. And meanwhile, Krishna's thinking, wait a minute. I love Mother Yashoda, but after all, I'm God. I don't particularly want to be tied up. This is not what I normally like to do. So Yashoda gets all the rope and it's 2 inches too short. And then she thinks, oh, I got to get more rope. So then she runs around the house, gets more rope, adds it to it. It's still 2 inches too short. This happens several times. Finally, she becomes a little exhausted. And then Krishna thinks, okay, she's my mother. I love her very much. She wants to tie me up. Okay, tie me up. You know, we think about that. It's described in the Vedas how universes, whole universes come out of the pores of the body of an expansion of the Lord. So there's Krishna, and again, complicated topic, but there's Krishna, and then there's the Vishnu expansions that universes come out of the pores of his body. He is so great. He is so vast. It's explained you could count all the grains of sand on all the beaches of the world, but you could never understand all the qualities of Krishna. So he's so powerful of a personality. And yet he's such an amazing, wonderful personality that in this devotional exchange with the devotees that are serving, have this eternal relationship with him as mothers, he says, okay, tie me up. What kind of powerful person is that? I live in Washington, D.C. I can just imagine if you went downtown, you know, pick your party, pick your position, you know, talk to the Speaker of the House, the President of, you know, the country, say, hey, we have a really loving relationship. I'd like to tie you up. No, not going to happen. Not going to happen. They're not going to say, no. We don't have that much of an affection relation. But God, who's so powerful, can have such a relationship with his devotees. So on this day, Mother's Day, a wonderful time for us to really think about the example of mothers, give us some insight of how that's the nature of God's love or Krishna's love for each of us. And also to understand that's the nature of his kindness to us. So we have an impetus to try to be, as Prabhu says, we should be attracted. We should hear these pastimes of Krishna and think, how wonderful it would be. Could I somehow learn more about those? Could I somehow take part in those? Could I actually enter into those pastimes? Could I be a part of that eternal dance, eternal pleasure pastimes of Krishna in the spiritual realm? And it's not a fairy tale. It's not just some type of mysticism with no experience. And actually, this is the practical, sublime goal of the process of bhakti, is to reawaken our relation with Krishna and leave this world and re-enter and be a part of the big party that's going on in the spiritual world. So a few thoughts about fearlessness, and then we'll open up, hopefully have some time for some questions. So we talked about, Prabhupada said we should have the soft-heartedness of a Bengali mother, honoring our mothers on Mother's Day. Prabhupada also said we should have the courage or be free from fear, or have the fearlessness of a British soldier. We know Prabhupada was born 1896. He was raised during the era of the British Raj, and Britain was a very, very powerful country at that time and was controlling not only India, but huge parts of the whole world, and large part of that based on the courage of the British soldiers. So he was making that statement in a way of admiring. So fearlessness, how does that tie in? Well, it's interesting because we know today, especially at this time in the world, there's a lot for us to be afraid of. There's a lot, and people are feeling tremendous amounts of fear. Fear about our health, fear about the health of our families and our friends, fear about the economy, fear about the whole job situation. Whole industries are shutting down. Are they going to open again? What kind of impact is that going to have? Even, fear about when I bring food to the house or when I go shopping for the food. Is it dangerous just to go to the store to buy some groceries, to buy some carrots? Am I going to get sick if I go to the store to buy some carrots to offer Krishna? So this fear is something that's ever present. So it raises a question for us. Prabhupada said we should be fearless or brave like that. How do we do that as devotees? So it was reminding me, I'm reading a lovely book that hopefully all of you have read. I probably read this more than any other book in in all of the Shastras and all of the sources we have, which is the Srila Prabhupada Leelamrita. I'm so inspired to hear about Srila Prabhupada. Not only this biography, but many, many others. But particularly, I just reread A Lifetime in Preparation, which is volume 1 of the Leelamrita, beautiful book. And I finished it and I started to read it again because I thought, okay, that was kind of the first time through your mind's being entertained, but I want to learn the history of Srila Prabhupada. So in connection with this, I'll just read 2 paragraphs, the opening paragraphs of the book. It was Janmashtami, the annual celebration of the advent of Lord Krishna, some 5,000 years before. Residents of Calcutta, mostly Hindu Bengalis and other Indians, but also many Muslims, and even some British, were observing the festive day, moving here and there throughout the city streets to visit the temples of Lord Krishna. Devout Vaishnavas fasting until midnight chanted Hare Krishna and heard about the birth and activities of Lord Krishna from the Srimad Bhagavatam. They continued fasting, chanting, and worshiping throughout the night. Paragraph 2. The next day, September 1st, 1896, in a little house in the, hopefully I'll pronounce this right, Taligunj suburb of Calcutta, forgive me if that's not proper, a male child was born. Since he was born on Nandotsava, the day Krishna's father, Nanda Maharaj, had observed a festival in honor of Krishna's birth, the boy's uncle called him Nandulal. But his father, Gormohan Dey, and his mother, Rajani, named him Abhay Charan, one who is fearless, having taken shelter at Lord Krishna's feet. Very appropriate name, huh? Yes, we'll stop there. So they named him Abhay Charan, one who is fearless, having taken shelter at Lord Krishna's lotus feet. So this is a beautiful reminder to us. Prabhupada is our founder, and he is our acharya, one who teaches by example. Even his name given by his parents is a beautiful example for all of us. It gives a clue how we can also become fearless, which is dependent on Krishna and taking shelter of Krishna's lotus feet. And if you go back and you look at Prabhupada's life, if you get a chance to read or to reread these beautiful histories of Prabhupada's life, and I was amazed a week or so ago as I was finishing some of the later chapters of this, Prabhupada struggled. Sometimes when they go, Prabhupada, he just crossed the ocean and there were a few kind of, okay, he had a couple heart attacks and a little difficult in the beginning, but boom, Krishna just blessed him with so much success. But there's a lot more to the story, which is for many, many years, Prabhupada faced a lot of struggles and a lot of trials. And we also, because it's the nature of this material world, we face trials, we face struggles, we face difficulties. We all have some happiness. We all have some distress. Krishna promises us in the second chapter of Bhagavad Gita, you will have some happiness in this life and you will have some unhappiness. We will have some success. We will have some failures. We will have some people that tell you, oh, Prabhuji or Mataji, you are the most wonderful devotee I've ever met. And 10 minutes later, somebody will say something to the effect that you are such a rascal. I wish you weren't in my life. This is just the nature of the material world. One day the boss says, great job. And, that afternoon, the boss's boss tells you, that they're going to be cutting out 500 jobs in your department and maybe you're not going to be there anymore. So these kind of ups and downs are always there. But we learn from Srila Prabhupada's life and many, many great acharyas. Bhagavatam is full of similar stories, but particularly looking at Prabhupada, Abhay Charan, one who was fearless, having taken shelter of Lord Krishna's lotus feet. He faced so many difficulties. He grew a very substantial business. He was a chemist, and he was producing different chemicals and medical products. and his business grew quite big. And then, to use the modern lingo, it crashed. His business crashed and had to be closed. And in fact, that happened at least a couple times. That's not easy to do that. He moved a couple times his family from a few different cities, and let's try here, and had to start all over again. Those things are difficult for anybody. Later in life, as a Vanaprastha, he went to Jhansi and he started his League of Devotees. And it's explained that the gate that they got, this building that he thought he had procured, actually had the Hare Krishna mantra painted on it from some previous people. So what a sign for Krishna. And the people there were very receptive, and he made so many efforts. He started preaching in the surrounding villages. It's a long story. You can again read it in the Lilamrita. The whole thing was taken away, and he had to start over again. Earlier on, his guru's ashram, the Gaudiya Math, is a sad history, but was preaching in so many, all across India, very, very powerful institution, but it become dismantled and split into smaller camps and groups after Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur passed away. That how much difficult that was for all of his disciples, including Srila Prabhupada. They wanted to see this mission go on. Prabhupada later, before he came to America, was living in Delhi and sometimes going back and forth to Vrindavan. He was publishing the Bhakti Godhead, little magazine, kind of like a newspaper, and he was personally going out to sell it for a few paisa. He would write articles, he would get the articles printed, and he was carrying, the papers back and forth and struggling. He'd go sometimes to the printers to scribe, and the printer would say, maybe later when he was a Swami, or Bhaktivedanta Ji, or sometimes Swamiji, have you eaten yet this morning? He didn't have enough money to eat, but he was publishing his magazine. So many trials and difficulties that were there. But Prabhupada describes, and later he went to the West. It wasn't like he just got off the boat and all of a sudden everybody came forward. Oh, look, it's the founder of the Hare Krishna movement. It's going to spread to 600 temples in a few years. This is great. It wasn't like that. More trials, more tribulations, more difficulties. His typewriter was stolen. They broke into his room. They stole his typewriter. Again, so many struggles. He was driven out of one place he was staying with a young man. He was kind of rooming with somebody. He didn't have his own place, had no institutional support. And this particular young man, he had some kind of psychotic incident or something, and Prabhupada had to run out of the apartment. He was like half crazed. This young man was half crazed. And they, called a few people by that time he knew, and they found another place. So one of these challenges would be enough to disturb a lot of us in ways that maybe we wouldn't get over. We'd say, why am I going on? But Prabhupada said he always had full faith and was always experiencing the presence of a spiritual master and Krishna. And because of that, despite all these difficulties, some situations that others of us would consider so fearful, how could we go on? Because of that, he was, as his parents have said, he was fearless, and he continued. So we too, as we develop our faith in Krishna, our relationship with Krishna, we also can become more and more fearless, understanding where the real protection is. And it doesn't mean, sometimes people kind of sentimentally will say, or without a lot of philosophical understanding, well then, okay, if God's protecting me, that I don't need to do anything. And a joke comes to my mind. I'll just share. I didn't have it in my notes, but it comes to my mind. Maybe you've all heard it. If you haven't, it's a good one to share, about the man who was caught in a flood, and the water was rising in the house, and he went on the roof. He was a very religious man, and a boat came by and said, John or Rajiv, or it depends where you are, quick, get in the boat. The water's going to come higher. And he said, no, I don't need to do that. God's going to protect me. They said, okay, we got other people to rescue. And then the water kept getting higher and higher. Finally, he was on the top of his roof, and another boat came by and said, Rajiv or John, get in the boat. You're in serious trouble. You could die. He says, no, God's going to protect me. And the boat goes away. Later, even perhaps a helicopter comes by. He's on the top of the chimney now. The water's at the very top. And no, God's going to protect me. And then they go away 3 times. And then the flood comes and sweeps him away, and he dies. And then he dies. He's a pious man. He goes to heaven or Vaikuntha and asks, he wants to see God. Sees God, says, God, I have one question. You promised me you'd protect me. Why didn't you protect me? And the Lord said, Rajiv or John, I sent the boat around 3 times. What more can I do? So Prabhupada comments in the Bhagavad Gita that God is helping us, but God also, I think it's an English expression originally perhaps, but Prabhupada quotes it, God helps those that helps themselves. So it's described, I think it's a beautiful expression. We pray and we meditate and we think about Krishna, and in our hearts, we're calling out to Krishna in the mood that everything depends upon him. It's our inner awareness and our faith. Everything depends upon Krishna. Sometimes you hear people, they wake up one morning and they're paralyzed. Things like that happen. Or they get in a car and they're driving someplace and some accident in the road they've driven 1,000 times, and out of the blue some terrible things happens, or sometimes out of the blue some wonderful things happens. So we realize when those types of situations come up, I'm not really in control. A lot of things are happening out of my control. So a devotee knows ultimately everything's under Krishna's control. So we pray in that mood. We pray as if everything, or knowing that everything is under the control of Krishna, but we should act as if everything depended upon us. This is a beautiful way for Vaishnavas to live. We act with all the energy given to us, with our intelligence, with our words, with our strength, with our money, with our bodies, whatever we can. We act as if everything depended upon us. We're not lazy. We don't just sit back, okay, Krishna, it's up to you. Send the boat again. We have to act. And also internally, we know that we're dependent upon Krishna. So I was here's something I wanted to share with all of you. This is a photograph of the deities in Denver. I first joined ISKCON at the Denver temple. So the deities, Radha Govinda, are very dear to me. And someone a few years ago had made this beautiful, I don't know if it's called a collage, a piece of artwork with a picture of the deities and some tulsi leaves and some flowers, dried flowers from Vrindavan. And they put this quote in this frame from Srila Prabhupada. That's a beautiful one, and it's connected to our topic today. Prabhupada said, when we become convinced that Krishna is our intimate friend and protector, how happy and peaceful we will be. Just be in love with Krishna. Then you'll see how much tranquility you will feel, how you are protected by Krishna, how you avoid insufficiency, how you become pure, and how you make progress in spiritual life. This was the end of the lecture. So then he says, thank you very much. Isn't that beautiful? I'll read it again a little quicker. When we become convinced that Krishna is our intimate friend and protector, how happy and peaceful we will be. Just be in love with Krishna, then you'll see how much tranquility you will feel, how you are protected by Krishna, how you avoid insufficiency, how you become pure, and how you make progress in spiritual life. So this is the way we become pure. This is the way we become fearless, is gradually awakening this relationship with Krishna and our connection with Krishna. And as that awakens, we actually do become fearless, step by step by step. And in the meantime, I heard recently a wonderful definition of courage, the opposite of being fearful, being fearless or courageous, and explained that courage means to act even in the presence of fear. Courage means to act even in the presence of fear. So I think we could modify that a little bit. Faith in Krishna means to act even when our realization is not full. Even if we're not completely pure devotees, haven't completely realized the truth of what the instructions are there. But by our faith, by our conviction, we act in that mood of dependence upon Krishna. And the more we do, the realization comes that Krishna is there. So just to conclude a little bit, and then we'll leave some time for questions. As spiritualists and as devotees, we want to try to cultivate these two qualities, nicely exemplified by Prahlad in his dependence on Lord Nrsimhadev. the fearlessness side, and the soft-heartedness of the Bengali mother. So again, Prabhupada said we should have the soft-heartedness of a Bengali mother, and we should have the fearlessness of a British soldier. So putting these two topics together. How do we do that? How do we do that? First of all, the first process of bhakti, we have to hear. We hear from the scripture, we hear from the devotees, we hear from the acharyas, we hear from the gurus. And by hearing about Krishna, and that he is not an ordinary person, there's no mundaneness about Krishna. He is the all-attractive person. He's the all-loving person, the all-forgiving person, the most amazing person with the most amazing pastimes. When we hear about Krishna and how loving he is, how protective he is of us, we begin to feel fearless, knowing that he's there to protect us. And practically, we all see, those of us that have been practicing bhakti yoga for some time, we see that sometimes Krishna doesn't appear right in the beginning of the scene. Just like a good drama, they kind of draw it out a little bit to kind of intensify the feelings. So in the same way, sometimes Krishna draws experiences out for us a little bit so that we learn to be more faithful, learn to be more dependent upon him, learn to be more convinced that he's there when we really need him. So first thing we can do, hear about Krishna, become aware and convinced of his qualities. Second thing that we can do is remember that after we hear about him, remember that he's our protector. And by hearing about him and his nature, and then remembering that he takes it upon himself to care for his devotees. That's one of his most beautiful qualities. And also, a third way, how can we become these two qualities of fearless and soft-hearted, is by understanding that Krishna is so kind to me, then shouldn't I also try to be kind to others? If Krishna is the supreme father of all living entities, if Radha is the supreme feminine energy, supreme mother of all living entities, the love of Radha and Krishna for the jivas, like us, other spirit souls, if that is so great, shouldn't I also try to have similar feelings towards those that I interact with? And perhaps, will that also please Krishna? And we know from the scripture that Krishna says many, many times, one who says they're my devotee, they're not my devotee. My devotee is one who's the devotee of my devotee. Many, many examples of that. So in conclusion, again, happy Mother's Day to all the moms that are out there. Thank you for all the love and all the sacrifices that you've all made in caring for your children. And I've seen many times ladies have the ability to care for others as if they're their children, which is a wonderful quality, which we all should learn. So we take the dust of the feet of the Vaishnavi mothers. And also on this day, a few days after appearance of Lord Nrsimha, we remember that we should be soft-hearted and also become fearless, both brave and soft-hearted and loving. That's the instruction given to us by Srila Prabhupada. So in this way, Krishna takes care of all kind of paradoxes. So we've got Mother's Day and Lord Nrsimha, but they work together wonderfully in Krishna consciousness, as everything does. So I'll stop there and then see if there's some questions. I don't know if there's a host or hostess who'll come on now, or if something in the chat box, but I'll just stop and see how we're guided here.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Please accept my humble obeisances.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So Lingaraja Prabhu is going to read out the questions. We have several online viewers in YouTube. Okay. So, and they have a couple of questions. So Prabhu, you can. Yeah.
Okay, very good.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. This is from Sanjay Patel, Prabhu. So Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Sanjay, thank you for sending in a question. I hope it's not too difficult a one.
So how can we not get distracted by the sense of panic news? I feel my thoughts are too absorbed in current situation, affecting my chanting and listening.
That's a very nice question. Well, first of all, we do live in a very complicated world. We're not living in the Himalayas. We're not living in some isolated South Sea island where we can, pick coconuts and fruits off the trees and live free from any concern. So we do have to be aware of what's going on. Especially those of us as grahastas, we've got families to care for. Maybe we've got homes to care for, other responsibilities. So we should be aware. It's not that we go in a cave and we cover our heads and just hope everything goes away. And being aware of what's going on, it's natural that some of these things are going to be a little upsetting. I know we have a phone call with the regional temple presidents, and we have two devotees on those calls, Nrsimha Prabhu, who's an anesthesiologist working in a hospital in Baltimore, who's right there on the front lines. I mean, literally putting ventilators in people's mouths and dealing with emergency crises and all the things we're reading and hearing about. Another devotee, Dr. Ashok Prabhu in St. Louis, is also a medical doctor. And each week we start out kind of asking them, we're all hearing so many media reports. What's your experience? What's the kind of medical insight? And it's like a roller coaster. Okay, the curve's looking good. Things are getting better. It's kind of an inverse. As the curve goes down, things are looking better. And then the next week it's, this has actually happened. And, I remember a few weeks ago asking, well, what about these ventilators? Are they going to get enough? And the whole thing was, well, Prabhuji, as you read, it's a big problem and we don't have enough in our hospital and we're just trying to do what we can. And then a few weeks later, you read, well, actually, now they've discovered that the ventilators aren't really the best way to help people. And you only have a 12% chance of survival once you get on the ventilator. And Nrsimha was explaining, so now they've found there's other ways to help people. They don't give people the ventilators as much. There's another way of giving them oxygen. They have a better chance of surviving. So, one day you read that depending on the state you live in, okay, the governor's opening up. There's red sections, green section, yellow sections, and they're opening up. And then you read, I know like when Jai Krishna was on the same call, who's one of the two co-directors and temple president New Vrindavan, he was explaining to the governor there, has said, okay, we're opening up and here's what we're going to do. And then a couple of days later was like, nope, people, too many people are testing positive. If it goes above this, we're going to roll back and not open up. So it's pretty difficult. And even in a more personal way, probably most of us, maybe all of us, if not directly impacted, we know somebody who has a family member or friend who's gotten seriously sick, perhaps passed away. It's very hard to not be affected by these things that are going on. So the one hand is it's not that we're not aware, number one. Number two, that we're not affected by this. Now, how can you not feel bad when you read that 75,000 people in our country alone have died because of this? And that some nursing home and people that are basically trapped and somehow the disease it's terrible things, and we should feel some compassion. I was reading while researching this class, you go back and look in Bhagavad Gita, the introduction. On the one hand, Krishna is chastising Arjuna for his mundane compassion, telling him you have to think things from a spiritual perspective. But Prabhupada comments in the purpose that Arjuna was qualified to understand Krishna's message because he was so compassionate, because he did care about the others. That was, again, this quality we talked about, soft-heartedness. So one, we're going to be aware, we should be aware. Two, it's going to affect us. But then back to what I said earlier, how we're not really disturbed by it, or how we're not disturbed in the sense of shaken, lose sight of what's the most important things, is that we have our faith in Krishna. We know that ultimately that Krishna is our protector. We know whether it's a sunny day or a rainy day, whether we're young or old, whether we're healthy or unhealthy, whether we're rich or poor, we know this body is not me, and I'm going to leave it no matter what. I can be very healthy today. I could die tomorrow. I can be unhealthy and live another 75 years. We don't know how long we're going to be here, but we know we're going to be leaving this world. So we don't allow ourselves to become so disturbed. Okay, there's a report out that, whatever, the virus or whatever it is, the tornado on another day, it's going to be a tornado or flood or an economic. Okay, today things don't look very good. What do I do? Chant Hare Krishna. Worship the Lord. Pray. Spend time with my family and friends on a spiritual focus and awaken my love for Krishna. Prabhupada was asked one time about potential of a future nuclear war. And Prabhupada said, they asked him, Prabhupada, what do we do if there's nuclear war? Prabhupada said, we chant Hare Krishna. So this is the whole focus of our lives as Vaishnavas. We should have no surprise. We shouldn't think, well, maybe I'll be successful. You will be successful, and you're going to fail at some things. You may have some material opulence, and you're not going to get as much as your mind sometimes says you should have. You may have some strength and some beauty. We all have some strength and some beauty and some capacity, but there's always somebody going to be stronger. There's always going to be somebody richer. So these ups and downs of happiness and distress, because we're devotees, Prabhupada explains, and then we'll go on to the next question. He says, when you're in the ocean, the waters, how can you survive the ocean? But if you're in the boat, even though the ocean goes up and down and so many things, if you have a strong boat and a strong, capable captain, even though the boat's tossed by the waves, you're protected. So in the same way as devotees, because of the association of devotees, the knowledge that we have, the spiritual vision we can cultivate, even though the waves come, we're not affected. And if we find ourselves being affected or disturbed, we should continue on in our practice and pray to Krishna to help us develop a more pure vision. And as we go on, more and more things will disturb us less. We'll see what that spiritual vision. Okay, today it's happy. All right, I'm going to chant Hare Krishna. Today I'm unhappy. That's okay. I'm going to take shelter in Krishna. Today there's some success. Okay, I can still make progress in Krishna consciousness. Okay, today there's some, etc. like that. So hopefully that's helpful. Thanks for your question. So we have another one? Another question? That was a very good question. Sorry for the long answer, but that was a good question.
Yes, Prabhu, we have two more questions online. I think Panduranga Gopal Prabhu has one question. You want to ask Panduranga Gopal Prabhu?
Okay, let me just ask, am I correct? We should quit on the hour, so we'll try to get 2 questions in 5 minutes. Is that correct? Okay, good.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, thank you so much for a wonderful class. Really inspiring. Prabhu, my question is, when you mentioned that point that you have to work as if everything depends on you, and you have to pray that everything depends on Krishna.
Yes.
So I was wondering, if you draw a line 1 to 100, when we feel that whatever I do, I do everything depends on me, then there is a possibility that I can be atheist, because I can feel that everything depends on me. There is no God.
That's why you have to have both. That's why you have to have both. We act as if everything depends upon us, but we pray and we know everything depends upon Krishna. So we get up in the morning and we've got something to do. It's not that we just wait for, Krishna's going to send a magic carpet and he's going to fly me to work. We have to get up, take a shower, brush our teeth, do our morning sadhana, drive the car to work, figure out the best way to get through the traffic. But ultimately, no, without Krishna's mercy, I'm never going to make it to work. So I have to try, but in my heart, I know actually it all depends on Krishna.
Yeah. So my question is, as we think like this without a practice, we tend to become atheists. So any tips to become an equilibrium, come to a point where I do both? That's what my question is. Is there any tips you can help us?
Yeah, I don't understand why that would make us become atheists, because if we're remembering, the most important part is remember that we're dependent upon Krishna. But we act, we in other words, we shouldn't be lazy. In other words, like I was asked to give this class, to give a simple example, okay? Now I can, run around and get my computer and I'm trying to log in and get everything plugged in and try to get the lights and look for the picture that I wanted to share with all of you. But in my heart, I know at any minute I could go plug the computer and the thing could explode, isn't it? I could go online and I got the wrong login. Or I could start to speak and something goes wrong with my throat and, they got to carry me away. And those things happen sometimes. So we should always remember, I'll share a story. I've told this before. When I was a younger devotee, was distributing books in an airport, which we did in the past. We stepped on a few toes. We also helped a lot of people in Christian consciousness. One day, a little girl came down an escalator in the center of this big concourse, and somehow her foot got caught in the escalator, and she let out this blood-curdling scream. And 400 or 500 people just froze. It was like the Bhagavatam, where something happens and the demigods all go, oh, alas, alas, is the end of the universe here. They all froze out of fear. This happened within a matter of 5 seconds. And everyone was looking around. Where is that scream coming from? Am I next? And then they gradually realized, okay, it's a little girl. She's on an escalator. Looks like she's okay. It's not me. I'm okay. And they continued on their way as if nothing had happened. But devotees understand that moment can happen at any time. My time here is limited. My death is guaranteed. They say taxes and death guaranteed. And with the way they're spending money in Washington, the taxes are going to go up. So it's even more guaranteed. Death and taxes are guaranteed. So I know that, how can I become an atheist thinking that there's no greater power than me? There is a greater power, and I should depend upon that greater power. And he tells me that I should act. Just like Arjuna said, I'm out of here. Again, modern version. I'm out of here, Krishna. I'm not going to fight. Krishna says, no, you have to fight. Depend upon me, but you have to fight. So practice that. Put into practice. I think you'll find the exact opposite. Instead of becoming atheist, our connection with Krishna become even stronger. And let's try to do the other one real briefly if we can. If there's a short question, I'll try to give a short answer.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you, Prabhu.
If you have a little bit more time, we can take both questions depending on your schedule.
I have more time. I just don't know, if you're uploading this to, Fox News in another 15 minutes and they only want exactly 60 minutes. Then,
No, we are good, Prabhu.
I'm flexible.
Thank you.
I'm flexible. So let me go back to the previous question. If there's more time. Prabhu, did that answer your question a little bit at least?
Yes, Prabhu. That answers, because it's very good explanation, Prabhu. To be honest with you, it's really inspiring that we have to pray to Lord that everything depends on Him, but we have to act that everything depends. That's a very nice quote, Prabhu. Thank you. Thank you so much.
And sometimes we see in this world, Krishna, those people that have no faith in him, sometimes they run into some huge problem, and that's when they call the God, isn't it? Krishna explains in the Gita, those that inquire, curious, those in search of the absolute truth, or those in knowledge, those who are distressed and those who are in need of money, they call out to him if they're a little pious. People that are too sinful, even in those situations, they still can't call out to him. But many times it takes a crisis in people's lives. So that same person who's maybe atheistic or agnostic or doesn't know if they believe in God, they kind of ignore God. But when something really bad happens, to them or someone they love, then it's like, dear God, please help me. Dear God, please help me. And sometimes, oftentimes, that's the beginning of somebody's serious spiritual, it's an opportunity to begin one's serious spiritual inquiry. So those difficulties, and many times that suffering, none of us like to suffer, especially me. I'm not a big fan of suffering, but oftentimes that suffering is a friend. It can give us impetus to be more serious and to call out to Krishna to help us.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you, Prabhu.
So next question, Prabhu, is from Sri Radhika Mataji. So it is wonderful when we are able to incorporate beautiful practices outside of the traditional Vedic practices, such as Mother's Day and Thanksgiving, and use them as opportunity to increase our appreciation for Krishna and his devotees. At the same time, looking into the future with a view to keeping the integrity of our movement, are there any guidelines provided by our leaders such as yourself in terms of how to incorporate such practices without getting carried away and morphing our movement into something unrecognizable?
That's a very thoughtful question. So she's pointing out the potential difficulty of us. Sometimes they call it mission creep, losing track of what our mission is, losing track of what our vision is. And specifically, she's saying, are there any guidelines to avoid that happening? Is she on live? Is she live or she sent a chat?
She sent
Did
it on chat.
did we get the question right? I want to make sure I got the question right. If she's not there, I'll just jump into an answer. We just want to make
She's
sure.
not online, Prabhu. She sent it. I mean, she's watching on YouTube.
Okay. So, all right. So she can chat back quickly if I miss something. It's a good question. It's a very, very, very good question. Can be answered in a lot of ways. So I'll just say a few things. Scattered things, because a lot of thoughts are coming in my mind. There's a lot of ways of looking at this. The first thing is, when we first come to Krishna consciousness, we have to be very careful to draw boundaries around who we are, what we're doing. Because let's say we used to go to a certain place downtown and do material things, okay? Whatever, a lot of devotees in our movement, they come from, maybe materialistic backgrounds. They used to go to restaurants, they used to go to bars or whatever. And, on whatever, South Street's a place that they used to go and, as they say, hang out with their friends and do materialistic activities. So they may have to say at a certain point, oh, I can't go to South Street because that's not good for me. It brings back memories. It's an enticement. It's a temptation. I might see people I know. I got to avoid South Street. So just as an example. So as devotees, in the beginning especially, it's good for us to be very careful to draw very sharp boundaries. And we all have different things that are difficult for us. I know myself, I first met the devotees, I lived in Michigan, but I think by Krishna's arrangement for me, I traveled and I joined the temple in Denver, Colorado. And I'll never know, but I seriously wonder if I could have ever become a devotee in my hometown. I had too many connections there, too many friends, too many memories that weren't Krishna conscious, but he gave me a whole fresh start to help me have those boundaries. So that's the first thing, especially in the beginning, we have to have those very strict boundaries. The example is given, it's spring now, in most parts of our country, it's spring, that when you plant a little seedling, like the Bhakti Lata beach, the seed of Krishna consciousness, we all know if you say you plant a tomato plant, you have to put some fencing around, sometimes like where I lived, to keep the deer out. And you have to put some sticks in the ground so the plant has something to give it shelter. Or probably give the example of a tree. When a tree is very young tree, it can easily get trampled. But when it's strong and big, it can give shelter to other living entities and other trees. But in the beginning, you have to be especially careful to protect that. So in the same way as devotees, we have to, in the beginning, be especially careful. And as we get more mature, more aware of what those boundaries are. There may be certain things that, I should avoid that maybe are okay for you. They don't bother you, etc. In all of us. So that's the first point. The second point is, at the same time, in our efforts to teach and preach to others, if those boundaries are too strict, then we're not only keeping things in, we're keeping things out. So we have to be careful of that. Again, in the beginning, as devotees, it's like not, neti, our own Vaishnava perspective from neti, not this, not that. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. I don't want to interact with those people. I don't want to go to those particular places. When we become stronger, then we can actually see, well, maybe there's an opportunity for me to make friends here. Maybe there's an opportunity for me to introduce people to Krishna consciousness. Maybe there's an opportunity for me to build a relationship with these people that will help create a favorable environment for Krishna consciousness. How can I use my influence, my relationship to make it more Krishna consciousness for the whole world, perhaps? We're never going to make the world Krishna conscious if we don't interact with the world. So the question you're really asking is, how do we interact with the world and not become infected or affected by that? And that's a case-by-case basis. We have to keep close association with the Vaishnavas, with senior devotees. We have a guru who's present to give us direct instructions, or other people acting as spiritual leaders for us. We have studied the scripture. See the example? I mean, Prabhupada, he was living in Delhi. It's described so many sadhus were in Vrindavan and they didn't go back to Delhi. Prabhupada went back to Delhi and he was going into tea shops. He probably never drank tea. He'd go into tea shops and sit down to sell his Back to Godhead magazine. He was associating with so many materialistic people to sell the Back to Godhead magazine. So again, it's a very good question you're asking. How do we draw that line? We have to protect ourselves very carefully, but also sometimes, not sometimes, when we're mature, understand that those have to be somewhat fibrous lines. Protect ourselves and be able to interact with other people at the same time. So for instance, you gave the example in my class, we're living, it's Mother's Day. Mother's Day is a very Krishna conscious event. It's in our scripture, we should honor our mothers. It's described in the Shastra that where women are revealed or protected, the demigods are there. If we don't take care and honor women, whatever we are, whoever we are, then we're not going to have very good. We're not going to make spiritual advancement. The world's not going to be happy. So if there's a celebration honoring mothers, we can embrace it. We say, well, that's not what they do in India, or probably they do these days. Hallmark's there too, right? They're selling millions of cards today also. But maybe that's not something that was manifested in a particular culture, but if it's Krishna conscious, we can use it. And that's one of the beautiful things about being devotees is we don't think, it's not that I'm American or I'm a man or I'm a woman or I'm brown or black or white. I'm a Vaishnava. And whatever can help me connect with Krishna, whatever can help connect other people with Krishna, that I should accept. And whatever is not useful, that I should reject. And if it's going to affect me in a harmful way, I should reject it. But if it can be something I can use to interact with other people, then I should accept it. And frankly, all of us can have different lines on that. Some of us may feel very comfortable with certain things and uncomfortable with other things. I don't have a Christmas tree. Here's a graphic example. I don't have a Christmas tree. I grew up in that culture. I don't need a Christmas tree, but I have Vaishnava friends that like Christmas trees. Okay, you want a Christmas tree? Helps you think about Krishna. You Krishnaize the holiday. Great, no problem. I was in South India a while ago, and they around the time of the killing of Ravan, and they said, "Can you shoot the arrow?" And I started to say yes. So now I'm going to shoot the evil Ravan. They said, "No, no, 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 no. This is South India. This is Narakasur. We're killing Narakasur. Don't say Ravan. Too many people here, like some sense, he's some whatever misinterpretations of Ramayana. I never heard of that before. I was like, okay, the Vaishnava culture I'm familiar with, we're killing Ravan right now, but like, no, no, no. So they have a little different way of doing it, but if it helps them connect with Krishna, that's great. And if it doesn't help them connect with Krishna, okay, not so good. Let's do something else. And again, long answer, but these are really good questions. So hopefully that shines a little bit of light there.
So one more question, Prabhu. Two more questions and one comment, if that is okay.
Yes, of course.
So this is from Chandramukhi Mataji. How to parent teenagers who are drifting away from Krishna consciousness?
How to parent
Teenagers.
teenagers. Yeah, well, let's start with children. The first thing, and I'm not an expert on this topic at all. One thing I would suggest, there's a beautiful book, if I could run and grab it off the shelf real quick, but it would take too long, about having Krishna conscious marriages produced by the Grahasta Vision Team. You can Google Grahasta Vision Team. The name is escaping me right now, although I remember I helped pick the name. I didn't write any of the book, but I worked with that team for some time. And there's a whole section there about parenting. And one of the things that sometimes we do wrong, to start with the wrongs first, is we kind of, as adults, wanting very much to be Krishna conscious, we set up certain rules and regulations and lines, what I shouldn't do. And we kind of assume the kids should do the same thing, but kids are kids. And if children are feeling loved, and if children are having fun, they will become attracted to Krishna, and they'll be attracted and become devotees of Krishna consciousness. We have to be very, very careful as parents that we don't push our children to be so Krishna conscious in their external behavior that we drive them away from Krishna in their hearts. And I'll just give one example that comes to mind. In the early days of the movement, well-intentioned people probably, but big mistake. Sometimes if they felt the child had been naughty, they would reprimand the child by saying, okay, like old-fashioned type of discipline from America mixed with Krishna consciousness, stand at the board and write the Maha Mantra, 50 times or 100 times. Now, if I'm 7 or 10 or 12 or 14, and when I'm punished, nobody likes to be punished, and when I'm disciplined or chastised, and I have to like struggle through writing the Maha Mantra, what does that do to my mind and my thoughts about the mantra? The mantra is a source of pain. It's a way of people punishing me, disciplining me, keeping me from going outside, playing with my friends. I don't like this mantra. I hate this mantra. I mean, it's a natural psychological development. So similarly, I've seen some cases in some of our ISKCON temples, personally seen, it's Mother's Day. Sometimes moms also make mistakes. Mothers bringing their kids to the temple and insisting that a young, full of energy little person sits down and listens to a 1-hour lecture that even most of the adults are having trouble sitting through because, half an hour, 30 minutes, and I should stop soon. We're going too long. We can't force it upon our children, but make it fun, share their love, and set a good example. And that's the best way for kids. And when they become teenagers, especially in America, they're going to test your boundaries. They're going to want to have some little independence. Again, go back and read the book. There's a section on teenagers in the Grahasta Vision Team book about marriages. Teenagers are going to test their boundaries, but if you remain loving, if you remain doing what you're supposed to do, if you tell your children that you have to be Krishna conscious, and then if they do some nonsense, you blow up, you're angry, you're upset, you lose your cool, you yell and scream. Well, you've just proven to them that you really don't believe in Krishna either, because you just act in a way that's completely against what he said. So continue to live and act and be a role model for Krishna conscious, even if they're going to go way over here. And of course, the whole time you have to pray really hard to Krishna to save their souls, and read the book and talk to other parents that are successful. Those are a few thoughts that I would share. So should we stop now? I don't want to keep everybody too late. Or we have one more, or what should we do?
2 more questions, Prabhu.
Okay. Well, everybody knows if we don't have that many people listening in right now, maybe it'll also be broadcast later, but whoever's here, please, if you need to go tend to some business, other things, please do so. So we'll do one more.
Yeah. So can you please share some of the situations which Prabhupada dealt fearlessly?
How Prabhupada dealt with things fearlessly.
Yes.
Oh, there's so many. For one, he got on a boat at 69, soon to be 70 years of age, across the ocean. I mean, that's scary itself, isn't it? Just to like get on a boat. I mean, these days people are afraid to get on airplanes, which lasts for about 10 hours. Prabhupada was getting on a ship. It wasn't even a passenger ship, it was a cargo ship. And he was going to a country that he'd never been to. And in those days, there was no email, there was no texting, there was no, all the video connection, no Zoom calling, no Skype. Nobody could afford phones. He was practically going into a dark place. He didn't know anyone there. He had one family he could stay with for a few days, 1 month. That was it. 70 years of age. I mean, that's fearless. I mean, imagine yourself. I don't know if anybody on the call is 70 or so, but even if you're much younger, just imagine right now, I'm going to say goodbye to just walk yourself through this. Goodbye to my family. Goodbye to my friends. Goodbye to my job. Goodbye to my house. Goodbye to everything I've got to offer me any kind of security. I'm going to take one small suitcase of a few clothes. I'm going to get on a ship across the ocean with seasickness and everything else that means. And you can just imagine a grungy little cabin probably on that ship. It wasn't a luxury liner by any means. And when I get off the ship, I'm in a strange country. Nobody's ever even seen anybody dressed the way I'm dressing. I don't know if they're going to accept me or completely reject me. I'm not even sure if I'm going to find anything to eat to maintain my vegetarian principles. I don't even know how I'm going to do that. And I have No money, no money, because I brought a few rupees and nobody exchanges rupees in those days. I am penniless and now I get off the boat. That's fearless. And before that, when Prabhupada, I mean, again, go back, please, the whole first volume of Leelamrita is probably just being fearless. You know, he went to Jhansi, he had nothing, and he opened this this beautiful League of Devotion. I think League of Devotees. I think it was. I have to go back and recheck the dates. I think it was almost a couple of years he was there, something around that amount of time, and then it was just taken out from under him. I mean, most of us, if we put a little energy or a lot of energy into something like that, and then it just stops, it you know, it ends, or you could say it was a failure. Of course, it wasn't, because whatever he offered to Krishna is transcendently pure and never lost. But externally, it was a failure. So many of us will become at that point fearful. Why should I try again? I just tried. Krishna, what'd you do this for? Prabhupada was selling his Back to God magazines in Delhi, and it described one day he suffered from heat stroke. He was elderly person, and he collapsed in the middle of the street. Somebody happened to find him and take him inside and give him some kind of medical. He didn't stop. He didn't become fearful. Oh, heat stroke, I could have died. I better not do that again. No, it's my spiritual master's mission. Another time he was there, I believe it was Delhi, might have been in Vrindavan, but during that period, and he was actually gored by a cow with horns. And you might think, okay, why am I doing this? And that might happen again. What if instead of having the horn go here, what if it gone here? What if it gone here? I could have died. Oh my gosh, I better stop. He didn't stop. So, I mean, there's so many, many, many examples. Prabhupada was supremely fearless. Those are a few that come to mind. Okay.
Can I ask one more question, Prabhu?
Okay, Prabhu, and I'm starting to doubt the honesty of the Vaishnavas, because you keep saying one more, but then it's one more. Then maybe this is a manifestation of the flowering of spiritual life. One becomes one. Let's do one more, okay?
Yeah. This is from Sachikumar Prabhu, Nipravil. Unfortunately, few senior devotees in Bhaktivedanta manner died due to COVID-19. It made me realize sometimes that just because someone is a devotee of the Lord, it is ultimately Krishna's will. It makes me anxious sometimes that some same may happen to me or a loved one. How do I get rid of this anxiety and depend on Krishna's will?
Okay, I'll bring it right home. Just a personal example, if I can. I've been a devotee since 1975, trying to be a devotee, as we all like to say, hoping to become a devotee, practicing to become a devotee. And in my own life, a lot of things have happened, but we moved to the East Coast. My wife and I started a business. It was pretty successful. We gave a lot of money to ISKCON and some other causes for 20 years or so. And then the whole thing just shut down. Krishna just like boom, boom, boom. It's like doors closing. You go here, that door closes, then this door closes. So it's like, okay, Krishna, you must have a plan. Show us what you want to do. And we lost our house. We had to sell our house, pay off some business debts, and the whole thing. And Krishna arranged for us lovely devotees right above our heads here, the Modi family. They provided a place for us to stay rent-free for 3 years. I had no money to pay for it. We're both old enough now. We started getting Social Security a little earlier than I would have liked to. So we're not getting as much money as we could have, but okay, it's what Krishna arranged. And after 3 years, now they're moving. They're also older, and they closed their medical office, and they're selling their house. So, we're making some adjustments. Krishna's making some arrangements. And, but we're moving from where we are into an apartment. And, my mind's starting to think, okay, how noisy is it going to be? We haven't had neighbors in a long time. What if the guy next door's got a dog? Okay. And we wanted to get a place with some greenery. So we found a place, but the trees are right outside the window, and some of the windows are facing north. So I like sunshine. I need sunshine physically, emotionally, whatever. I like sun. I don't like dark. So my mind's thinking, oh, the windows are to the north. What's that going to be? And how's this? And how's this? And how's that? And then, I mentioned something to my wife, and she said, she reminded me, this is why we need devotees in our life. She said, put it at Krishna's feet. It was like, oh yeah, I forgot. You know, like, thanks for the reminder. I knew that, but yeah, it's a fact. Okay, Krishna, if you want, you can put me in a dark dungeon. And if that's what's best for me to be Krishna conscious, I accept your arrangement. Or if you want to have a big, big dog next door barking all night long, so I realize how terrible this material world is, so I can chant more sincerely and surrender to you, okay, you do it. Or if you're going to give us a place that's like got the most beautiful view and this and that, okay, do it. You know? So again, we do the best we can. And we leave it up to Krishna. We found out in this particular place, and just, I'm giving this example because we all deal with these ordinary things. So how do we Krishnaize these things? We're moving, and you know, we found out sometimes with these apartments, sometimes like they, you know, they tell you they're salespeople, right? What about the carpet? Well, we either replace it or we have it cleaned, which, you know, means 9 times out of 10 they just clean it, right? So God helps those that helps themselves. I'm planning to send a message to the manager, you know, in a nice way. Okay, we might be there a few years, and could you kindly consider, you know, putting a new carpet, blah, blah, blah. That's an example of me trying, but inside it's up to Krishna. Krishna says, no, Nunam, I think it'd be good if you had, like, you know, maybe the carpet's a little dirty. That'll remind you it's not a happy place and get out of the world better. Okay, that's his arrangement. Krishna gives me a nice clean carpet. Oh, Krishna, thanks for the nice clean carpet or the new carpet. This is going to help me, Krishna. Whatever it is, we Krishnaize it. And Prabhupada's the preeminent example of that. So even in ordinary things, you know, we just practice. We practice. And we know ultimately that there really is no security in this world. Everyone is going to die. Everyone is going to grow old. Everyone is going to get diseased. And as it's described in the Bhagavatam, what use is a long life if we just stand like trees or we breathe like bellows? Better a moment of full consciousness than a long, long life. And of course, I wish everyone here, and we only want, you know, may everyone here be happy and live a long, long life. But ultimately, we're going to leave this world. So what we do at the time we have, that's what's really important. And if we leave it at Krishna's feet, okay, Lord. And the fact is, we should be able to pray like this. Krishna, I don't know what's good for me. Maybe some of us, we've had the situation where we're trying to get a job and it looks like a good job and a nice company and they're going to double our salary. Oh, Krishna, please, I need this. I need this. We don't know if that's good for us or not. Maybe we go, we get a job with that company. It turns out the boss is terrible. There's people that are biting at our feet at every moment, trying to pull us down. Maybe they're going to let us go after 3 months. It's going to look bad on our resume. Maybe it wasn't good for us. We thought maybe it would be good, but we never knew. So we do the best we can, and we know ultimately Krishna is making all arrangements for me. Some happiness will come, some distress will come, but if I connect with him, if I remember him, at each of those instances, each of those different situations, that can help me awaken my spiritual knowledge, awaken my connection to him, help me be a better person, help me be a better devotee. And in that way, Prabhupada says, just become Krishna conscious and enjoy life with a thrill at every moment. It's one of my favorite teachings he's given us. Just become Krishna conscious, enjoy life with a thrill at every moment.
There is a comment, Prabhu, from Sri Radhika Mataji, if I can
Oh,
read.
it's very tricky, Prabhu. Everybody see that? See, devotees are expert. Krishna is about the cheaters, he is cheats, right? Something like that. So he ended the questions as promised, but now this is a very good, very good. I have to learn this from you, Prabhu. Okay, one comment. It's almost been an hour and a half, so let's do one comment and then
One comment.
Okay, but I'm very happy and honored to be with all of you.
This is from Sri Radhika Mataji. Tying your two topics together, I never knew fear the way I know it now after having become a mother, because there is no greater object of attachment than one's offspring.
Yeah.
As a mother of 2 young and active boys, I realize that unless I surrender my fear unto Krishna's lotus feet, I will be dysfunctional. Like Mother Uttara prays when seeking protection from Maharaj Parikshit in her home, the Lord is the only shelter of fearlessness, especially for a mother.
Very nice realization. Beautiful realization. Very beautiful realization. Thank you. I think that's a very appropriate place to end.
Hare Krishna.
We started on fearlessness and motherhood, and we're ending with fearlessness and motherhood, nicely wedded together.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. This is Premananda.
Haribo.
Please accept my
I
humble
can't see you,
obeisance.
but I can't see you, but I can't see you, but I was thinking this is a voice of God just coming in from out there.
Why you cannot see me? I did turn on the video.
I don't know, maybe because it only shows so many people at a time. Let's see. There you are, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
There's Mukunda. You don't look like Mukunda.
Well, that is his old computer. These are the leftover things from your children, you
So
know.
in honor of today, we're speaking with the mother of Mukunda.
Anyway, I just wanted to say that every bad situation has a golden opportunity, and having you here on this, what do you call this thing? What is this thing called? Zoom, right?
Yeah.
Zoom, whatever it is. Anyway, having you here, it is like such a great pleasure for us. To get you come from wherever you are traveling to come to Naperville, that was so difficult. So it has become so easy to have you here on the Zoom now. And so even the whole world situation is so bad, but this is a real wonderful opportunity for us to have you with us and hear from you. And we are very grateful and thankful that you are here with us today. And I hope and pray that you can periodically come and give a class to us.
Thank you very much.
For Naperville, particularly.
Yeah, well, it's up to Krishna, isn't it? Krishna, you know. In fact, if you look on the ISKCON News, or they recently put it on this GBC COVID site. I'm not a big writer of poetry, but a couple of weeks ago, I actually wrote a poem about this question. Open up. There's this clamor, right? It's time to open up. So I wrote a poem about that. It's time to open up, and basically said it's really, whether we open up or we don't, it's really time for us to open our hearts and minds to Krishna and understanding that there's a higher purpose in life. So whether the technology it causes problems or is bringing us together, everything can really become an impetus for Krishna. That's the beauty of bhakti. It's so wonderful. And Prabhupada says so many times, it doesn't matter if one is educated or not educated, or rich or poor, or young or old. There's no material impediment. So it really is, we're very fortunate. And I'll invite everybody to remind you, I mean, there's so many, I know, like the Tuaco temple's having like all kinds of wonderful guest speakers from around the world. Satyananda Swami's doing japa retreats. I've heard Jayapataka Swami's doing a class, I think, every day. I mean, there's probably hundreds of classes going on. Previously were going on, in person, but now they're going on online and bringing people together from all around the world. So, it's a wonderful opportunity. It's a wonderful opportunity. Okay, Sumangala, you have motherly duties to take care of. Go.
Hare Krishna.
Okay. Okay,
Hare
everybody. Good night, everyone. Thank you so much.
Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna.
Thank you so much, Prabhu.
Thank you. Hare
I
Krishna.
look forward to your association again.
Yes.
Hare Krishna. I would like to take a minute to thank the team. Please just be 1 second. Thank you so much, Anuttama Prabhuji, for teaching us how to be soft-hearted, but at the same time to be fearless by taking shelter of Krishna. Thank you so much. I would like to thank everyone to be on this YouTube call, and being there from 4.5 hours. Thank you, everyone. And the festival team, I would like to read out in a minute, Subal Prabhu and Krishna Nrsimha Mataji, all the way traveling from Chicago and bringing the deity and doing such a great Abhishekam, and all the Abhishekam team and marketing team and everyone I would like to thank, and Sham Prabhu and Pratibhav Prabhu, everyone who helped me with this telecast, Lingaraj Prabhu and everyone. Thank you so much. Dhananjay Prabhu, Balram Prasad Prabhu did wonderful homam. Thanks a lot. If I missed anyone, please forgive me as it is late, but thank you so much for joining. Have a nice Krishna conscious day and happy Nrsimha Chaturdashi.
Jai.
Hari Bol.
Thank you all so much. Hare Krishna.
Hare
Haribo.
Krishna.
Haribo.
Now we will end the session. Thank you, everyone. Hare Krishna.